Well, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I know this is what happens. I do the show in the morning, and then as soon as it's in the can, all hell breaks loose. Okay, Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Great to be here as always. Happy Friday. So yesterday we do the show, and then literally right afterwards, news comes out about the Andrew arrest, the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly known as the Prince. Okay, let me tell you the most important thing here, and I said it. I was on Lindell TV yesterday, did a live hit, and I people have this fundamentally wrong. They think that this is Epstein accountability. They haven't charged Andrew with any sex crimes. So far, everything I've seen, it's all public corruption. Now it ties to the Epstein files in the sense that Andrew had fed to Epstein confidential, secret government information that he had as the UK trade representative. And so by giving Epstein this information, which of course came out in the latest file dump, now they had grounds to charge him, but they haven't charged him with any sex stuff. So I'm letting you know this. Now, one thing to know about the British government is there are people implicated in the files that are friendly allies of the Prime Minister, of Keir Starmer. For example, Peter Mandelson, who Starmer recently, I think a month ago, appointed to be an ambassador. And this Mandelson guy, is a high-ranking labor politician. And he basically is, implicated in the same sort of stuff that Andrew is. He was not, of course, arrested. They moved quickly on Andrew and are still protecting their own. So I'm just something to point out. Now, you know what? I look. Another thing that just absolutely gets me. It gets me. So-and-so's name is in the Epstein files. So what does that mean? Right? What does it mean that someone's name is in the files? Lawyers that went after Epstein, their names are in the files because, of course, Epstein in his emails is talking about them. I'll give you a great example of this. Mark Randazza, who represented Mike Cernovich, a conservative commentator, in his quest to unseal information about Epstein, both of their names appear in the Epstein files multiple times. And I love this. They say Trump's name is in the Epstein files, however many. Of course, Trump's name is. I've been telling you this all. Of course it is. But most of it is Epstein ragging on Trump. Most of it is Epstein upset with Trump. Trump, of course, is the guy now that we know, blew the whistle on Epstein. So the whole thing is absurd. Now, so to me, if I hear that somebody's name is in the files, context is everything, right? This is how these things work. Anyway, I just give you a little bit of perspective here. No, it's not the most important thing going on, but now that I've seen more and more stuff come out and people are sifting through this, notice how there really isn't anything in there that is damaging to Trump. And it boggles my mind why Trump slow played the release of this stuff. Whoever gave him the advice to hold on to this, whoever told him, and I don't know, I'm still not even, Robbie, seeing stuff in there that really, it taints any key allies of the United States. One theory that was out there, I shared it with you, was that, people were, people inside the Trump administration, maybe Trump himself, was concerned about getting a Gaza peace deal done, that there were people there, high-ranking members of the Israeli government that were in there. There's a former prime minister who was an antagonist to Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, he doesn't appear favorably. But other than that, I don't see it. So it really was it that Trump thought it. Somebody told him that it would tank the stock market. I don't know. It was terrible advice. Because now the story is, Trump dragged his heels on releasing it. And nobody's focused on the fact that it's 99% of the bad stuff in there is all Democrats. Yeah, it's a Reid Hoffman et al. He's the LinkedIn guy, right? He started LinkedIn, a very successful guy, a billionaire, big fat dude, right? Rivals Pritzker, governor of Illinois. We'll talk about him, by the way, in a minute. Illinois, Chicago, losing the Bears. Oh my gosh, we'll get to it. But this Reid Hoffman guy, right? And he was going to the island. He was asking for his ice cream orders ahead of time. Nasty stuff. Get my ice cream and my girls ready. It's gross. And do I see the liberals out there boycotting, running to stop using LinkedIn? Of course not. Anyway, it's just, to me, an unforced error. Now, let's get to this Bears thing. Look, the story out of Chicago, and I was born in Evanston, so this is a story close to home. It's playing out everywhere. It's playing out in New York. You see that, in New York, in the city of New York, people who voted for Mamdani for mayor are beginning to have regrets. They are beginning to regret the decision to vote for the guy. And the problem is this always happens, a day late. And when you're short a few dollars, right? Mamdani came out earlier in the week, announced his budget. And he basically goes, we got to raid the rainy day fund. And they went through the budget of New York is wild. It's stunning. The budget is, and I didn't know this exactly, the 2020 budget, $92 billion annually. So last year's budget, so 2025, was $100 and almost 16 billion. So significantly higher. Now, let's just compare this, right? Just for perspective. Mamdani's budget now is $127 billion. Now, the city is required to balance its budget by law. What is that? In 6 years, the budget will have gone up. Was it 33 billion? That's a 30%. It's a 30% increase. It's wild. Now, so what happens is now the Tuesday's budget, the one that was announced this week, has a $5.4 billion shortfall. So they're going to they're raising property taxes. They're pulling out money from the rainy day fund. They've got, it's just, they're going to tax everything that moves. And it's going to affect a lot of people that voted for Mamdani that just thought that free stuff falls out of the sky. This is the fundamental problem with liberals. They don't know math. Well, they don't. They think that when you go and give free money away, that money is going to come from someone else. It's never going to come from your pocket. That's in the mind of a Mamdani voter. It's not going to be me that pays for that. It's going to come from somewhere else. It's going to be some billionaire that pays for it. All of a sudden, there's a 9.5% property tax increase that's being proposed. And that's affecting a lot of these people. I told you, a lot of these Mamdani voters, they're not the poors. That's the craziest thing about this. You look at the statistics of the people that voted for Mamdani. Largely working class parts of the city broke for Cuomo. It was, yeah, it was a double income, people who were making hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, not the billionaire class, probably, not the multi-million, but people that are making good money and oftentimes own apartments in the city. They're going to get hit by this. They're losing their minds, and it was all entirely predictable. Well, I know. Well, they're taking to social media. They're posting videos. I got it. Okay. And by the way, now you look over at Chicago. Chicago is a beautiful city. Obviously, built by incredible Americans, hardworking and successful people. And it has been taken over not just by Democrats, but the worst kind of Democrats. Brandon Johnson is a complete, unadulterated moron. You've seen this guy talk. I mean, he press conference, Mr. Woke, right? All DEI, all racial, grievances, the like, right? That's Brandon Johnson. And so, and by the way, we've, big on canceling the police, big on defunding the police. Crime is soaring. There's been a series of press conferences where people actually, you got to hand it to the local media in Chicago. They're bringing up questions like, Mr. Mayor, if you look down at El Salvador, because they would bring up immigrants, right? If you look, well, sir, may I draw your attention to El Salvador? President Nayib Bukele there has decided to incarcerate basically every criminal in the country and throw them all in prison. And lo and behold, the murder rate's way down. Would you consider something like this? And this question gets asked literally almost every press conference. And the mayor, in all of his wisdom, with crime rates soaring, gun violence at all-time highs in Chicago, goes, no. And you can't, you get mass incarceration is not the answer. Easy for you to say, Mr. Mayor, living with paid taxpayer security behind walls and gates, immune from the crisis you're bringing. So now the Chicago Bears, right? You think Bears, you think Chicago, you think the Bears. They're moving. They're moving to Indiana. Why? Simple. The math didn't math, right? They're not a charity. The Bears are a team. They've got to make the deal pencil. And the incapacity, inability, and unwillingness of the Democrat administration in Chicago to retain their iconic team is stunning. And teams like this do not. We know this here in Las Vegas. We're very familiar with it, right? It takes a lot to move a team. You pick them up, you put them somewhere. They're in that stadium, right? They're not leaving, right? The Raiders, they're not going back to Oakland. Oakland could get a Republican administration. Gavin Newsom could be magically replaced in Sacramento by the ghost of Milton Friedman, and it still is not going to result in the Raiders moving back. What my point, of course, is that when the Democrats break things, okay, it's not easy to go back and put it back together. Now, let me speaking of putting things back together, I shared a couple days ago, I shared with you my story of, why I'm a conservative. And I'm doing this here because a new time slot, new format of the show. So I wanted to reintroduce myself for those of you who don't know me. And I mentioned specifically, my parents' country where they were born. They were born in Czechoslovakia and now the Czech Republic. And the obviously 1948, the communist revolution occurred in my parents' homeland, and a country that was before the war wealthier than Germany very, very quickly just eroded and fell, right? And this is, and I remember I told you a few days ago how it took years and years and years for the country to recover from it. And that's what's happening. You think, look at the flight of wealth out of California. You look at the billionaires. that now have, what is it, about $2 trillion or so have like literally bounced out of California. They're gone, never to return. And where did they go? They went, whatever, they went to Florida, Miami. I just saw this, is it Palantir is leaving, Colorado. They're leaving Colorado, and they're going to Miami. I mean, it's, the joke, of course, is Miami is going to become unaffordable for mere millionaires. You have to be a multi-millionaire, billionaire to afford Miami, but they're all going to Miami. You think they're going to build their beautiful mansions and new headquarters and everything, and then, California or New York or whoever, Illinois goes, oh wait, we want you back. We're gonna drop our tax. You think people are just going to pick up and come back like that? That's the part of it that terrifies me, because imagine this level of incompetence at scale. Imagine one of these dummies, whether it's Pritzker or it's, Gavin Newsom, both of whom have all but declared ambitions to enter the presidential race in 2028. Imagine that we get their level of incompetence in Washington, D.C. I mean, right, there's one thing that you don't want to do with failure is you don't want to scale it, right? I mean, it's like, that's what it is. With Democrats, it's scaled failure. Robbie, I know you got a cold, so I don't mean to make you laugh, but coughing over there. I get it. This is what we would have. You know what? The new Democrats are so insane that the old Democrats think they're nuts. Here's Rod Blagojevich. Remember Blago, the former Democrat governor of Illinois? Here's him talking about the Bears.
Gov, who's to blame here? Pritzker or the Bears?
Well, our Nepo baby billionaire governor just got outplayed by the governor of Indiana. I wish I was still governor, because the Bears would never leave. And Pritzker was outplayed because his priorities are all wrong. His priorities are all about fighting law enforcement. It's fight law enforcement when it comes to protecting illegal immigrants, and tens of thousands of whom are violent criminals. Why? Because he is pandering and servicing the lunatic fringe and the Bolshevik majority that has now taken over the Democrat Party. It's no accident that the Bears want to leave Chicago and in Illinois, because, like the other businesses you pointed out, nearly 1 million people have left Illinois since he's been the governor. And since he's been the governor, he's raised taxes and fees more than 50 times on the people of this state, spent nearly $3 billion on illegal immigrants. His priorities reflect this new Democrat Party. And the Chicago Bears fan base are traditional, hardworking, working people, blue collar. Right. The people the old school Democrats used to stand for, but this new school Democrats with this Nepo baby Bolshevik billionaire are pandering to the crazy left wing and doing it at the expense of working people. And as a result of that, we may lose our beloved Bears.
Nepo baby Bolshevik billionaire Pritzker. God. Now, I know, listen, Blagojevich, is a big Trump fan for obvious reasons. But he's right. He's right about the old school Democrats. By the way, the old school Democrats are what? Like like Blagojevich, they're all Trump people now. Trump took those people from the Democratic Party. All that the Democrats have left are the illegals, right? They've got the crazies. They got the fringe lunatics that are out there, can't even agree how many genders there are. That is the state of the Democratic Party. And so Blagojevich nails it here, right? It was always about the math. It was always about the numbers, and it was about public safety. You've got to make a hospitable environment. And the worst thing is, I'll tell you, and this goes to the core of Democrat thinking, that I promise you that both the mayor, Brandon Johnson, and Governor Pritzker both believed that the Bears couldn't leave. They couldn't leave. And so they were held there against their will, Yeah. I'll take a quick break here. Sam Mirejovsky on the What's Right Media Network.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Folks, a quick word about what to do if you've been in an accident. Obviously, make sure everybody's okay. Take your phone. I always recommend opening your phone and starting a video. Just let it roll. Because what happens is you got the video, you take a video of the scene, everything going on, and oftentimes you'll actually catch the other driver admit stuff, and then it's on tape, right? So open your camera, start rolling, make sure you get the insurance information, an ID of the other driver. Maybe they're illegal, maybe they're uninsured, but, get to the bottom of it. Call the police if you need to. And then, before you talk to anybody, call Sam and Ash Injury Law, okay? Even if you're not hurt, get some advice from us. We're here. This is what we do. And for listeners of the What's Right show, you tell them that I sent you, all right? Because they're, Oscar, Michael, Melissa, they're a great team here. They are standing by. They will help you out, and we'll get to the bottom of it. Now, the reason I say this is because the minute you begin talking to the insurance company, you've made a mistake. You are going to get the runaround like nobody's business. So don't do that. Your time is precious. You don't want to end up thousands of dollars upside down for something that wasn't your fault, okay? So don't do that. Sam and Ash Injury Law, 800-304-2000, 1-800-304-2000, because you deserve what's right. All right, folks, just a quick note here about just a sad story out of Southern California. A Caltech genius named Carl Grammer. This guy was one of the leading experts in space and really just an irreplaceable mind, a brilliant guy, was gunned down by a guy named Freddie Snyder outside of his house. The guy, not much known at this point about Snyder, other than he had a previous first-degree burglary charge against him from late December, probably out on bail. My quick point here is, again, with Democrats breaking things, a life can never be replaced, can't be brought back. And every time they let a criminal out on the street, every time they let an illegal immigrant criminal into the country, every time they let these people loose and someone dies, someone's murdered, it's an irreparable harm. But the leftists don't care, right? They just do not care. And one of the leading politicians right now in the country, who is a soft on crime, hates the cops, Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago, held a presser yesterday talking about the Bears. The Chicago Bears are leaving because, of course, they don't want to get shot, and they're done paying the ridiculous Illinois taxes. So here's Brandon. So here's Brandon Johnson. Here's him at the press conference, gets asked the question, and he seizes up. Listen to the arrogance. I mentioned this right at the bottom of the last segment. I listen to the arrogance. He just thinks that the Bears can't leave. They can't leave Chicago.
Is my face straight? Okay. All right, keep a straight face here. The Bears belong in the city of Chicago. The Chicago Bears belong in the city of Chicago, right? And I've said repeatedly that the door is always open for conversations, Kevin Warren did call me yesterday. We didn't get a chance to connect, and I still firmly believe that their best position is in Chicago, and it's evidence. The evidence is clearly speaking for itself.
The evidence is clearly speaking for itself. Hold on. Let me. The guy gets up there. This is the mayor, right? The Bears are leaving, and he goes, okay, I've said it repeatedly. The Chicago Bears belong in the city of Chicago. You know, isn't it funny how the Democrats always think that people and things and companies belong to them? Isn't this how the left has treated minority voters? Right? He goes, "Hey, you aren't the Bears if you leave Chicago," is what he's saying. It's almost like it's the Joe Biden equivalent of you ain't black if you vote for Trump. And it's messed up because this is not a good political strategy. It's not. By the way, did you notice this? That he actually admits in this clip that the team owner called him and reached out. The Bears, reached out to the mayor and Johnson said, we didn't get a chance to connect. He didn't take his call. I'm sorry, if you're the mayor of Chicago and the Bears are leaving, is that a phone call that you take? I'm getting all excited here. That's like the most unbelievably top of my important call that you need to take. And how long? What is that call? That's going to be 20 minutes? 30 minutes? The astounding incompetence. Well, the governor of Indiana got the team. This is the point, right? Here's J.B. Pritzker, the Nepo baby Bolshevik billionaire, as referred to by former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. Here's Pritzker talking about it. This is utter incompetence. I think these guys are they're all of them. Pritzker, of course, among them, chief among them, they're all too busy fighting Trump. They're too busy resisting ICE. They're too busy out there calling Trump a Nazi every 10 seconds. Pritzker, what was it, 2 weeks ago, boasting how he was the very first person to call Trump a fascist, a Nazi, etc. Patting himself on the back for this. Meanwhile, they're not taking care of business, right? They're not doing their jobs. Keeping a major iconic sports franchise in your state, in your city, seems to me to be sort of a high priority item. But no, not handling it. It's crazy when the guy, Blagojevich, right, ended up getting into a little trouble with some bribery problems. This starts to be a problem. Blagojevich looks like the competent governor in comparison. Oh, boy. Anyway, but, do you see the budget comparisons for New York? Back to Mamdani. Wait until he actually gets started. Wait until Mamdani has a year in office. I mentioned earlier that the proposed budget that Mamdani announced is just enormous. $115 almost $116 billion. The 2020 budget was $92.8 billion, just by comparison. To understand this, the entire state of Florida, the state that all of these billionaires are moving to, the state that has all of these businesses moving there, the state that is growing by leaps and bounds, the state that doesn't have an income tax, their entire budget is $117 billion. Got a population of 23.5 million. New York has a population of 8.8 million, excuse me. Now it's, 8.4 million. And their budget is literally the same as what Mamdani is proposing. Well, Tokyo's budget is $61 billion for 14 million people. And it's one of the safest places in the world. By the way, entire Ministry of Education in Japan spends $122 million. And here's another statistic. The New York City Department of Education spends more total on education than the entire country of Japan does through their Ministry of Education. And they have a population of 122 million people. 122 million. Well, but where's the money going? Because of Doge, we know exactly where the money's going to go. And by the way, the voters, all the socialist voters in New York are going to be very disappointed to realize that this money isn't going to go toward free stuff. I mean, nominally it will, right? The line items there are horrifying, right? It's just a parade of horribles of a socialist democratic budget. But all I see are opportunities for everybody's little greedy hand to get into the till, to get their, to get some of that lucre. And that's what's going to happen. $5.6 million for the Office of Racial Equity. This is good. $4.6 million for the Commission on Racial Equity. I don't know. What's the office versus the commission? $835,000 for Commission on Gender Equity. $260,000 for the Department of Education Chief Diversity Officer. This is so good. $301,000 for 3 fire department civilian chief diversity inclusion officers. Robbie, this is fantastic. Remember the LA fires? The Palisades might still be standing today if LA Fire wasn't obsessed with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah, they hired a bunch of, that's why I said right from the beginning, they hired a bunch of lesbians and none of them knew how to operate a hose. Quite surprising. Well, $118,000 for this is just for the chief diversity inclusion officer. So this is $500,000 basically for chief diversity people just in the fire department. Okay. It did not, the budget, what is this? The budget did not include funding for a Department of Community Safety. All right. So there would the mental health teams are not included in this. Remember, they had the officer-involved shooting where Mamdani said it'd be better if the guy with the knife that's schizophrenic would have a social worker show up in a nice little vest. And pretty please, could you, sir, put your knife down? Let's talk. The guy's charging at him, with the, the crazy eyes. Oh boy, it's going to be a disaster. The problem is, and this is what I said at the time, when many of you were emailing me and saying, Sam, I don't want to talk about what's going on in New York. Who cares? Who cares? Because you know what? They're going to get their comeuppance when Mamdani's policies fail, and everybody's going to see the light. Who was it? Was it George Will Robbie who said, every 20 years or so, this was in response to Mamdani, every 20 years or so, I forget the cycle. Hey, people need to be reminded about socialism and communism, and they got to be reminded about how bad these policies are. But people, at what cost, number one, and I'm not sure people learn the lesson. And because you have a reality avoidance built into the liberal brain, the lesson won't be even learned this time. It'll be right in front of them, the failure, and they'll find somebody to blame it on. Probably the worst thing would be if there was a Republican mayor, a governor in New York. That's the one good thing about this Illinois and Chicago and New York State and New York City. It's blue plus blue equals, well, poop brown. But no, because if there was a Republican governor, Mamdani or Brandon Johnson could blame it on the Republican. You can't really blame it on Trump here. It's not gonna work. Well, get your popcorn out. It's not good. And by the way, if you live in Illinois and you live in New York, you have my I'm sending you all the best thoughts. Let me get to this now. Yeah, I'm going to get to it because I started talking about the Epstein files at the top of the thing. You know what? All of a sudden now, the tone is changing when they discovered that Trump is not implicated in any criminal activity, any wrongdoing. And all of a sudden, because people's names are popping up in the list. Okay, here, now even the ladies of The View want you to approach the Epstein list with nuance. Listen to this.
We're on the list because we were at a party or a wedding or something that somebody might have been. That's what I found out anyway.
Yeah, no,
I was at Trump's wedding to Marla.
Right.
Maybe Epstein was there too. Who knows?
I don't know.
So that means that I'm not guilty, obviously. But these other ones, how are you going to decide who's really guilty and who's not?
Well, I think
very tricky.
I think it's very clear because if you look, you know why my name is there. Because someone was looking for a plane, and that's what people do. They go to all the people who have private planes and say, do you have one?
And you didn't get on the plane.
I didn't get on the plane. I didn't know they were looking for a plane.
Yeah.
I had no idea that the plane that I was supposed to be on was no longer available. So I'm named in there like Whoopi Goldberg needs a plane.
But there are a lot of people that are
Marilyn Monroe is on the list.
Yes.
There were plenty of people that were there are plenty of
Elvis
people
also.
named in the list that may have not done anything wrong.
Yeah.
But I think that there are a lot of people that are on their list that are guilty
Yes,
of wrongdoing.
Panic is setting in. It's setting in, and now they have to completely reverse course on everything that they've said because these ladies a month ago were your name's on the list, your name, and they released the files, and then they released the files, and Whoopi Goldberg's name is in there. It's so good. Yeah, you can't look if somebody hates Trump, if somebody's a deranged Trump hater, that's it. They're not going to. You can't change their minds. For example, somebody put up a post, I forget who it was, but saying that there was an allegation contained in the files that Trump had, there's a tape of Trump with, an underage woman. And then, so of course, I'm gonna investigate it. I started looking at it. The person who makes this allegation has been completely discredited over and over. It was investigated. There was a lawsuit, and she literally, the whole thing got thrown out By the way, by a Democrat judge, no less. You got, but the thing is, the left always wants, they'll believe that Trump, that, well, maybe they'll like Trump now that he's releasing the UFO files. I don't know. But they'll always believe Trump is the worst of the worst because it's, TDS. The same way they'll never believe that the city that they're in, the state that they're in, is rotting because of the idiotic policies that they voted for. It's like this. It's just how it works. Folks, all right, well, listen, here's my email, sam@whatsrightshow.com. By the way, got a great email from Ray in Las Vegas begging me to do 3 hours, saying now I'm down to 1 and the 2 wasn't enough. And Ray, I appreciate your email so much. It's very kind of you. I'm going to take some time today and respond. Folks, I love this new format, though. We can get in, we can get out, do it every day. And if you, I'd love to see you guys signing up for the podcast. That's the way to do it. Get the podcast right away in the morning. Bam. It's live. You've got your news for the day. You know what's going on. Or you can listen on the radio here in Las Vegas at 6 o'clock in the evening. All right, folks, got to run. Sam Mirejovsky on the What's Right Media Network. Sam@whatsrightshow.com. @whatsrightsam on X. Have a great weekend. See you Monday.